Welcome to the second episode of finding something that every author does best, even if I have to pick something really shockingly specific. This is the show in which I go through every author who has read one book I've read, like, at all recently. Sorry, I'm not doing people who I read when I was 9. That's 9-year-old me, not remember things. And in which I find one thing that they are the best at. And to be clear, I do not mean it is the thing that they are the best at relative to their own skills. I mean it is something that they are better at than everyone else. For some authors, I can pick things that are very general. For some authors, I have to get really specific. But we're doing it for them all, and this episode is going to be all the authors with a last name from D to K. We got some really good authors in here. Let's go. Alright, leading off the D names, do I have a D name later? I don't. Okay, I saw someone with a first name D, but we're going last names. Is Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart and the Lonesome Crown by Simon & Schuster Saga Press. As a side note, this isn't what I have, with the single best review on BookTube, which was his review of Redwall Book 1. And for Brian Lee Durfee, I have the writing and utilization of in-world religious texts. Like, he went madman genius with these. There's like 4, maybe there are 5, I can't remember, religious texts in this world, and like, they all feel like a religious text, and they all have their own distinct voice. Like, you could read a quote and be like, that's that in-world religious text. It's actually, like, it's mega-brained. I have no idea how he did this. It's brilliant. But hey, that's Durfee for you. Next up, we have Nicholas Ames, who was one that was slightly more challenging, because I think he's a very well-rounded author from the two. I mean, there are only 2 books by Nicholas Ames, so I don't have to say the 2 I've read. But I have Exploring the Theme of Celebrity, which, granted, I can't really think of other people who have explored that theme that much. But also, I thought it was done very well in Kings of the Wild. So yeah. And next, we do have 2 people together, because I've only I haven't written any books, read 1 book by them, and they co-authored it, which is MLL Motar and Max Gladstone, who co-wrote This Is How You Lose the Time War. And this one, I wasn't sure. This is a weird book. We don't even know the protagonist names. Anyways, I have as the thing they're the best at, blurring the line between pretentious and genius. Like, this is the novel that makes me go like, I was reading thing, and I'm like, it got a little away from you. That's like, this is someone writing to another, like, and I'm like, that got a little away from you, and the person's like, I feel my prose purple. I'm like, okay, I guess it's supposed to be doing that. And when I read it, I didn't know if this was completely genius or if this was just, like, pretentious and meaningless. And I don't know. It's probably a little bit of both. Who knows? Go find someone smarter than me to determine the answer to that question. Next up, we have someone that was kind of difficult to pick one for a different reason, and that is Stephen Erikson, who I think even the people who don't like Malazan would agree. Stephen Erikson has a somewhat unique skill set. There are lots of things that he is very, 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 very good at. And there's a couple routes I could have gone here. And you know what? I've been talking a lot lately about, like, Erikson's theme, but we went the other route this time. We're just going with his ability to make things absolutely epic as crap. Through a combination of just being a creative genius and coming up with some wild events, and also just his word choice to make the epic scenes epic. It's just, they go so hard. And this night I'd messed up the line from Toll the Hounds. Shame on me. Anyways, and this night, why it is but half yet done. And this section is but half yet done. Now, I was able to quote it right. And here is where I mentioned that I've been extorted by another Discord user, but I was extorted into doing something that I'm fine with doing, which is I like to give a tribute to some fantastic Erikson characters coming from the Paran family, Tavor and Ganos Paran, very different. One person who were very separate from the narrative, and one who we get a lot of POV time relative to how much time they spend in the narrative. We spend a lot of time in their POV. Ganos and Tavor Paran, brilliant characters. Hello Sunday, you made me put this section in the video, but I'm okay with that anyways, because they're really good characters. A Jake always pays his debts. We're moving on to Neil Gaiman, who I have only read one book by, which was American Gods. And I'm not going to lie, this might be the most specific one yet. But this would kind of, I picked it specific because there's a specific example, but this vibe of this could apply a lot more generally. And I have writing a sleazebag Odin, and yet, like, somehow it actually really works well. Mr. Wednesday, man, you are a scumbag at times. Okay, next we have William Goldman. And I have absolutely insane framing devices. And I've talked about this framing device before, but he wrote The Princess Bride. It's the only book I've read by William Goldman, and which obviously got adapted into the movie. And for those that don't know, this is the framing device for The Princess Bride. So there's a guy who had a favorite book that his father read him as a child called The Princess Bride. And it was like this action adventure, and it was just a story that he loved. And then when he had a kid, he got his kid The Princess Bride, and his kid, he was really, really, really hard to find a copy. Like, it was an old book that's like completely sold out anywhere. But he managed to get a copy, and he gave it to his kid, and then his kid was like, I really like chapter 1, and then chapter 2 was incredibly boring. Then his dad went and was like, what's going on? He went to read the book, which he'd never actually read. He just had it read to his father, and he realized that, like, his father skipped most of the book and just, like, only read the good bit. And it was actually, like, this massive satire book, and he enjoyed the story unironically. So if you're ever wondering in the movie, like, why is everyone acting like that? It's because all the pieces are events from a book that in world is, I'd like to note, this is not a real book. Like, this is written in The Princess Bride as if there's a real longer book called The Princess Bride, and this is his effort to abridge it. There is no real book called The Princess Bride. It's made up. But the reason the scenes like that are in the movie is that they are the parts that are supposed to work for a satire that the person abridging enjoys unironically. Hit me with a more wild frame device than that. 3/4 of the people, including myself, who start The Princess Bride, get like 30 pages in and are like, damn it, I got the wrong book, and start trying to look for the real version that he's claiming he's abridging. Okay, we're moving on to Terry Goodkind, who I have his ability that he beats everyone else at is his ability to write books that are not fantasy books that have dragons, wizards, and chosen ones. And next we have Daniel Green, who actually, as in author mode, is referred to as Daniel B. Green, who also I had to get. I haven't read Rebel's Creed. I've only read book 1, where he had a protagonist who was a police officer in a world where police officers are like religious figures. And that aspect of Breach of Peace I actually thought was like, well done. So we're going with that. And he wins that by default. But, you know, I don't know anyone else who's done that. Anyway, we're moving on to John Gwyn, who is absolutely, positively, the best writer at writing giants riding bear cavalry who shout truth and courage. Yeah, we're going with that. I mean, that's something that any self-respecting person would want to be the best at, but unfortunately, you're all not John Gwyn, so you aren't the best at that. Okay. Next, we have Frank Herbert. You may have heard of him. He wrote a book called Dune. I think it sold like at least 6 copies. And I think what Frank is actually the absolute best at is his ability to frame dialogue in third-person omniscient. Because I'm not actually convinced, like, if you just had his dialogue and was like, Paul said, Jessica said, that it'd be, like, amazing dialogue. But his framing of the dialogue and the way, like, he jumps between heads, it just, like, makes it more enjoyable to read because of how well done it is. But also, like, it adds so much, he manages to add so much nuance and depth and conflict through the way he frames dialogue. It's genius. Next we have Robin Hobb, who I've been known to be a fan of. And here, I could have just put writing books, but I did decide, for Robin Hobb, I think she's better than anyone else I've read at writing characters. I think she's the best character writer that I have ever encountered. I think they just have a level of complexity and humanity that I have not seen matched. I generally get pretty attached to them and feel like I know them almost instantly. She's extremely efficient at getting you to know people very, very quickly, while also being able to have you follow them for a long time and have them continuously grow in a way that feels so human. One of the things that I think make her characters work so well is that she understands that everyone is a slightly different person with everyone they interact. My parents know me and my coworkers know me and my friends know me. But they all know a slightly different version of me. And it's not because I'm being genuine with one person and false with the other. It's just because we show different slices of ourselves, slightly different versions of ourselves in every interaction based on our relationship with that person. And Hobb is able to capture this so masterfully. Also, her character, internal voices and psychological depth is just so good. Okay, you all know I like Hobb. We can move on. Right to the best characters, though. Next, N.K. Jemisin. And I have doing really, really clever things with point of view. I have only read one trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, which was the Broken Earth trilogy. And I can't really say what those things were, but it did some truly mega-brained things. Next, we have another author who you may just have heard of a little bit, which is Robert Jordan. And I have writing characters whose actions and world outlook are informed by their culture. I sometimes find it somewhat weird when people are like, why are all these characters making, choices that I find frustrating? And then also at the same time, they're Jordan's culture's who are saying Robert Jordan just has the details down for cultures and they're not actually affecting the people. It's the reason the characters are making frustrating choices and different types of frustrating choices is that even the supporting cast, they all act with the environment and cultural norms that they grew up in mind. It does such a good job of having these clash. This is even we think of it less with the main five because Two Rivers is more similar culturally to probably most people reading the book. But I think even a lot of the aspects people find frustrating with the characters is just because that's the norms they grew up with. Anyway, that is the J's, which means we're on to K's. Speaking of K, there's a man named Gavriel Kay. I've been known to be a fan. And I have to admit, I'm probably going to tell you I'm going to say prose. I do have written down here writing good words. I think he's the best at writing the good words. He is, I think he's my favorite prose writer that I have encountered in fantasy or otherwise. I read mostly fantasy, so that otherwise doesn't actually mean that much. We'll get to more other stuff, but the man just has a way with words. Just the way the sentences flow together is so brilliant. His sentence structure, his damn sentence structure, it shouldn't work. He's able to just, insert little sentences into his other sentence. I swear, if I tried, I don't write, but if I were to write, and I tried to write like Gavriel Kay, it would be so annoying because I just couldn't do it. And it would be so clunky, but it's not clunky from him. And he's so, efficient with his scene setting, and I can just picture everything. He just picks the right words, and he doesn't front load his description. So the descriptions don't get annoying because it's not all right, we got to get to a scene. He's going to describe everything and then we can do the scene. He has the scene happen and he manages to just sneak in the descriptions into the scene in a way to makes them unobtrusive. But I can see what's going on. Anyway, moving on. Stephen King. I've only read one book by Stephen King. I'm sure there are probably, I would love to be I've heard, there's some that I've heard, but we're not going off reputation here, so I can't do writing small towns, because there's just not that many small towns in the stat. So I had to get hyper specific, which I'm sure I'll get yelled at for this one, but I just haven't read enough Stephen King's. So I have writing a deaf mute character, which on one hand, he wins that by default. But on the other hand, he would win it anyways, because as much as I'm not the most enthusiastic for The Stand by Stephen King, I love the character Nick. Every time I got to a Nick point of view, I was like, yes, I love that character, and he's easily my favorite character in the book. And we move on. 2 to go. T.J. Klune. I've also only read one book by T.J. Klune, which was The House in the Cerulean Sea. And the thing that I have that he's the best at is, once again, one he kind of wins by default, but also something that, like, it's not like he wins at default while not being good at it. And that's that writing a character who manages to threaten to end the world hundreds of times, really, really wholesome. I'm not even going to elaborate on that. You guys are going to have to read the book to know what I'm talking about. And coming in, last but not least, we have R.F. Kuang, of who I have read The Poppy War, but not Babel. Get to that at some point. And I have writing the consequences of characters, like, pushing problems down the road. Like, characters being like, okay, we'll deal with that later. Like, we have to prioritize. And all those little things they prioritized not being forgotten. And they're being a reckoning at the end. Okay. This was part 2 of the series. I think this video is a little bit longer, probably because, like, I spent half of it talking about how much I like Robin Hobb and Gavriel Kay, but it's going to be like that sometimes. So, let me know. We got, I don't know which letters I'll do for the next one. I'll probably go down to, like, I won't do the S's, because there's a lot of S's. I'll probably go down to, like, R, like L through R, so you can try and guess what some of them are going to be. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day, everyone.